Alright, so this video we're going to continue our skin tone colors, and this is going to be a light-skinned model, kind of like my skin tone, which is very pale. Always remember these skin tones can kind of be tweaked a little bit depending on what you're going for by just changing some of the ratios. So for this, we're going to go we're going to start with a base coat of XV88. This is really only if you're going over black. If you're going over like gray or white, you can skip this and do our next color, which would probably be the Cadian flesh tone. But going over black, I find it's better to build up with XV88 and then going to our main color. So this, because it's just a base layer to build up on, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to make sure there's not really any black showing. Okay, so now that our base coat is dry, we can add in our sort of real layer base coat. This is actually the base color we're going to be using. The brown is just to help this cover better and more easily without getting too clumpy or streaky looking. Now we'll let that dry, and then we will come back with a wash. Okay, so now that our Cadian flesh tone base is done, we're going to wash it with Seraphim Sepia, whatever. This will give it a little bit of a warmer shade. If you want, you can always use Agrax, our trusty Agrax Earth Shade. That'll make it a little bit darker. I like the sepia for lighter skin. It just kind of depends on what you're going for. You could also, if you want a really pink hue to the skin, you could use Druchii Violet, but this can look a little bit weird if you're not careful. There's another video I'm going to do about how to make really pale, kind of sickly chaos skin, and that uses this, but that's another video. So you don't need a ton of the sepia because we don't want it to look super brown necessarily. We just want to give it some shade. We just go ahead, we let that dry, which will take a few minutes, and then we will be back. Alright, so the wash is dried enough that we can continue. So next we're going to add in our layers to build up from sort of this dark pink brown color in the shadows, and we're going to do 2 layers of highlights. So our first layer is going to be about a 50-50 mix of Cadian and Screaming Skull. You can kind of mix this however you feel. If you want something a little more pink, you could go with this. If you want something more pale as the end result, go with more of this. But it's about a 1-to-1 ratio. So there's our sort of medium color. And we're going to put this on any of the flat kind of edges and areas. It's mostly going to take over all of the base coat that we did before, but just leave a little bit of the shadows left. You kind of focus on the top edge of things. So there we've got our, essentially our first layer. You just kind of keep follow the contours, find where skin's showing through. In this model in particular, there's all these straps and stuff going across, so I would come over and paint those now that I've done this layer. But there he is, so that's the base. So you could stop here if you really wanted to. But we're gonna do one final sort of spot highlight. So then our final layer is going to be Screaming Skull and White Scar in about a 1-to-1. If for some reason you're unhappy with this and it got too light or you went in the cracks or something, you can always add another layer of the wash and kind of do it again. And sometimes that can be nice to make more subtle things, but this is just a fast way to get a really nice kind of contour look. So we're next, about 1-to-1 of each of these. So we have our final highlight, which is essentially white, and this is just going to go right on the edges where it would be the lightest. So, you know, like the tops of the shoulders, tops of any like ab muscles, his pecs here. So like the hands, I usually get the knuckles. So there we have our final, very pale skin. Pale. And you could kind of stop at any point along the line and do that. You can mix in other colors to change the tone if you want, but that's how I tend to do most of my lighter skinned models.